Gabby. Hi, everybody. It's just occurred to me that I maybe should have looked up some Irish to introduce this, but that literally just occurred to me 3 seconds ago, so...
Don't do it. Don't do it. There is a lot of consonants.
That's true. We did have an offer from Proncius, our lovely Irish pronunciation correspondent, to help us out, so we might need you. But anyway, hello everybody. A very warm welcome to episode 14 of parkrunpedia. I'm Hannah Perrin, and this
I'm Gaby.
Our lovely Professor Parkrun herself, Gaby and Hannah. And this week we are, as I said, off to Ireland. Now, we picked Castlewellan Parkrun last week, and I kind of looked at it and went, that maybe sounds kind of Welsh to me. And no, not at all. So we are off to Castlewellan Parkrun, which is very much in Northern Ireland. So let's have a little look at them. So we'll pop the stats up. So they are a few years old, inaugurated in 2017. 28. They're a relatively big one, average of 222 finishes there. And again, that's one that's skewed by smaller numbers earlier, and they're well up into the 300s if you look at the more recent numbers. And a fairly speedy one if you look at the fastest finishers, both the female and the male fastest finisher times are.
So what do we think about the male fastest finisher? How do we pronounce that?
I think that's Owen.
I don't know. But you see the whole
thing. I think the Irish pronunciation, there's a whole bunch, like you say, a whole bunch of extra consonants that are just there just for fun. You don't actually pronounce them. They're just there to confuse English people, I think. So I'm fairly sure that's Owen. Please feel free to correct me, anybody in the comments or anything else. Right. Let's have a quick geography lesson. Let's see where we are. So there we go. Little green dot there over there towards the east coast of Northern Ireland. Have a little zoom in and see where we are. So there's Belfast coming into view, the Irish town of Newcastle, and there's Castlewellan coming into view there. And if we keep zooming in, you can see it's a odd shaped route. It's a kind of a loop around a lake, as we've had a bit of a theme of the last few weeks have been lake parkruns, haven't they? Very, very lake heavy. So yes, a loop around the lake, and then this odd straight bit that seems to go sort of down a straight bit and then across and then back up a straight bit again. So yeah, a really interesting looking route.
It looks gorgeous, doesn't it? Kind of just does. This kind of lake, and obviously the uppy and downy bit is just to make up the 5.
Must be, yes, just to make up the route. But I love the fact that it's this odd sort of a dead straight bit as well. Very strange. But yes, so that's where we are in the world, and let's have a look at some pictures now. Gaby did say to me just before we came on air, do you want to confess to this one, Gaby?
Which of my many confessions?
Well, we're not supposed to have favourites, really, are we? But you did say that this one...
It looks amazing. I think from just looking at it, this may be the one we want to go and do first.
It does look rather beautiful.
Even more beautiful than Rising Sun we did last week.
Let's have a look. So let's have a look at some of the pictures. So how's that for a lake? Doesn't that look just flipping spectacular? Look at that. So that is actual Castlewellan Lake that the parkrun route goes round the outside of. Isn't that just beautiful? Look, beautiful autumn colours. I want to go there already. So let's have a look. And that presumably is the castle of...
That's Castlewellan itself, yeah. I mean, isn't that stunning?
It's absolutely beautiful. And you can see actually the little parkrun start sign down in the corner that we're all missing so much. And I've got a really clever trick with this one. Like, you ready for this? Okay, so here is the parkrun start line with the castle in the background there, and obviously the start sign facing this way kind of implies that you start downhill, which looks quite nice. But look at this, I'm going to press a button, I'm going to magically make parkrunners appear in this picture. You ready? Here we go. Ta-da!
I like it. I like
okay, it's a slightly different angle, and obviously the weather's different, but yeah, so a picture of the start line from somewhere in the middle of the pack, by the looks of it, where the feather flag is down the front there. And yeah, and amazing. It's a proper like turrety Disney type castle, isn't it?
It's called the Scottish baronial style, and it dates to the 1860s. So this is a kind of, sort of a Walter Scott Gothic revival confection. You don't need turrets in the 19th century. You just have them because you want to style it out. It's one of those ones.
Yeah, totally. It's a proper, if you ask a small child to draw a castle, that wouldn't be far off. And of course, we have to have our parkrun dog. So this week I picked this one because doesn't he just look so enthusiastic? The proper, like, here we go, tongue out. Thought that was a pretty good parkrun.
That was me on Saturday, actually. My first one, after kind of like being locked up. That was me, tongue out, woo, out. And I control that dog, I think.
Yes, it's definitely that kind of dog enthusiasm for like, Gaby, walkies! Gaby kids bouncing around at the door. So there we go. That's where we are this week. And doesn't it look just absolutely stunning? Now, we've started a bit of a tradition, haven't we, Gaby, that we've done for the last few weeks of challenging you to find a connection between the previous week's parkrunpedia location and this week's. So last week, Rising Sun up in Newcastle. This week, Castlewellan in County Down, Northern Ireland. Did we get there? Did we join the dots?
We got two. We got two. And I have to say, I mean, I'm going to give you the tenuous connection first, and then I give you the kind of blatantly obvious one after. But the tenuous one takes us back to our favorite kind of like man of mystery, Huntington Beaumont from Nottinghamshire.
Oh, he rings a bell.
All the surveying around Rising Parkrun?
Yes, yeah.
Well, he was from Nottinghamshire, and the actual people who kind of built Castlewellan, both the castle and the village itself, the town itself, they're from Nottinghamshire.
Okay.
Is that tenuous enough?
That's pretty tenuous. Yeah. I like it.
That's connection one. Connection two, you already spotted it, because of course, just 3 miles away from Castlewellan is Newcastle.
Oh.
So, we went to Newcastle in England last week. This time we were in Newcastle in kind of like, and it's interesting because actually we need to talk about Newcastle. I mean, we're in County Down Shire. We need to talk about Newcastle because it's that whole area has a really interesting history. Obviously, there are original baronial Irish families, but some of them did, according to the British Crown, not behave themselves very well. And one of the favourite punishments of the English Crown was to wrest land off the Irish nobles. The family who really kind of like had been dominating County Down since the 12th century, the kind of McGuinness family, they had a stronghold in Newcastle. And it acquired the name Newcastle because in 1488 they built a new castle.
Right. Okay. Yep. Logic.
I mean, what other kind of like name do you need to sort of like have? This kind of like Newcastle is really the kind of mother city of Castlewellan. So Castlewellan comes as an afterthought. Interesting place to sort of like look at in its own right, because, for example, in 1910, a Mr. Henry Ferguson undertook one of the first recorded flights in kind of like Great Britain. So Newcastle now has a massive tourist sort of like festival. I think it's the 10th of September. That's kind of like stuck in my head. So there's a weekend, I think it's the second weekend in September. They recreate the 1910 historic flight of kind of Henry Ferguson. So parkrun powwow.
Historic plane?
There's all sorts of things. The Red Arrows do flyovers. There's just massive kind of aerial displays. So that's the weekend when we go. We'll just use that.
Yeah, okay, if we're setting up this trip. Yeah, okay, good. Air show, yep.
Apparently the history of Newcastle is poorly recorded.
Oh.
Apparently, but there is lots and lots in the local records about a sort of blue lady which hounds the Mourne Mountains, which is like ringing the kind of area of kind of Newcastle and Castlewellan. And this was made me think of kind of one of Newcastle's possibly most famous residents, which is Florence Balcombe, who is Mrs. Bram Stoker of Dracula fame.
Oh, okay.
So maybe she's the blue lady, who knows? Who was mourning in the Mourne Mountains. You know, there's all sorts of stuff going on.
Oh, I like that theory, yes.
Yeah. So that's Newcastle. And Newcastle as this kind of like sister or mother kind of like development fell from the McGuinness family to the Annesley family from Nottinghamshire. So here's another kind of like connection to Nottinghamshire, Annesley family. They kind of like took over the area in 1764. So Castlewellan's really interesting. You know how we kind of had a bit of a sort of think about these Australian cities and about how recent their history is, because most of the places we look at, they're recorded in the Domesday Book. Castlewellan as a kind of place doesn't come into existence till the late 18th century. And it's there because the Annesley family are starting to kind of build up an almost industrial base, and they're kind of like building a residence for themselves there. So they start building the castle.
Of course.
They start building magnificent gardens. They kind of start to develop the entire area. But Castlewellan itself is really interesting. They actually get a French architect in to develop Castlewellan, and it's got a really funky and really kind of like unusual feature. It's got 2 city squares, an upper square and a lower square, and it's connected by a ginormous kind of like avenue. So it's kind of like a Parisian boulevard, but 100 years earlier. So it's a purposefully designed French exhibition town kind of place there because the Annesley family needed to kind of like develop the area. Isn't that cool?
Yeah. You can promenade up the avenue.
Yeah, it's the 2 squares. It's got a really amazing shape, actually, the kind of like city to itself as well. I mean, the parkrun itself, as we've already seen, is in basically what was the kind of Annesley family's backyard. And it's spectacular. And there's a reason why. So if we show our listeners Exhibit A, they might get a sense of what's actually going on.
Okay,
we've got 4 exhibits today, or D exhibit. So the Earl Annesley, which is actually in this case the 5th Earl of Annesley, somebody called Hugh Annesley, who was writing in the 1850s and 1860s, he was absolutely obsessed with gardens. And he really went into the sort of family tradition of kind of like expanding the gardens. So when they moved there in the 1760s, they kind of built just a hunting lodge, of which there's no traces left now. But they started to put down the foundations of a garden. And then the garden got bigger and bigger and bigger. And by the time the 5th Earl, kind of like Hugh, kind of like Annesley was going, he basically laid the foundation of an arboretum. So this parkrun sits in an arboretum, which has some
rare trees and plants.
It's got some really truly amazing sort of like trees. There's one in there which just gets described as a mutant tree. It's labeled cypress, which is known as the Castlewellan gold. So they have actually a tree which is specific to the actual park, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. And there's sort of like other things kind of like going on as well. One of the things which actually made me howl with laughter is when I was kind of like researching it, is it sort of like says the original entrance to the garden was very narrow, about the width of a moderately girthed person.
So if you've put on a bit of lockdown chonk, then you can't go to Castlewellan.
Yeah. Well, I took a little bit of comfort from the fact that it said the original entrance to the garden. So maybe
so they build a new one.
Yeah, but kind of like moderately. It's obviously only for moderately girthed person. This kind of like garden, sort of like originally, but this garden was developed in kind of like into huge kind of like spaces. And in the 1860s, they built what's Castlewellan, and that's obviously kind of like the family seat. The castle, the parkrun course goes round it, but you can't actually go in it because it belongs to a kind of like Christian group, and they hold retreats there, which I don't blame them. I mean, can you imagine doing a retreat with a parkrun outside?
Yeah, probably would interfere with your peace. Yeah, not so zen having a few hundred brightly coloured park runners come stampeding through.
My running is meditation, no problem at all.
Absolutely, yeah.
But there's kind of like other things which are quite interesting to sort of explore as well. So if we look at Exhibit B, that kind of like gives us a sense of a little bit of the history of this kind of like area as well. So the reason Castlewellan exists as a kind of settlement is obviously the Annesley family didn't just want to kind of breed mutant trees. They obviously wanted to generate income as well. And what they're doing there is they're bleaching cloth. So Castlewellan is a kind of cloth textile settlement. What they were doing in particular was they're bleaching brown cloth, and they then took that kind of like cloth, and they were doing something like 200,000 individual pieces a year. They took that to Newcastle, the Irish Newcastle, and loads of that actually got exported to particularly the Americas.
Oh, wow. So really the cloth in the sun.
Yeah. And it's the bleaching sort of like mills and bleaching kind of like fields. So stuff was kind of like washed in the lake and did various bits and pieces with, and then it kind of like was laid out on the kind of bleaching lawns. So there's some really interesting industrial developments in Castlewellan as well, where they're not quite dealing, with the kind of development we saw last week of kind of like steam-powered engines developed into railways. But what had been a bit of a cottage industry with regards to textile production in Castlewellan, they produced much like higher volume of output, and that was kind of overseen by the Annesley family. So again, what's quite interesting is this 5th Earl of Annesley, the author of the book we just looked at. He was a bit of an interesting person. He was like a professional soldier, served in a number of kind of conflicts. At some point, we're talking the 1850s, he ended up in Japan, took his camera with him everywhere, took loads of photos. Unfortunately, they're not digitized, so I couldn't get at them. I know the archive they're in, but I couldn't find sort of many digitized sort of versions. And he was just absolutely kind of like obsessed with kind of Castlewellan. So he got married a couple of times. First time when he was 19, and he married a very wealthy wife who was 46, an apparently blissfully happy marriage, who produced a daughter who became a very famous watercolor painter. She specialised in painting the garden. So, very kind of interesting.
It's a pretty nice subject for an artist. Imagine sitting there with the easel and...
Yeah. I mean, if we look at exhibit C or image 3, depending on which counting kind of like thing you want to use, this gives us a kind of like sense of how the area is constructed. So this is a folly in the garden, again constructed at the same time as the castle. So Hugh Annesley is responsible for that, and it's called the Moorish Tower. And all the windows are kind of directed in such a way as to frame a particularly nice view of the garden. And obviously the photographer in this one has silhouetted the person absolutely kind of spot on. So you can imagine the kind of quality of the watercolors his daughter was actually sort of producing. It's pretty good.
Beautiful place to take it. Yes. Okay. So when we go there on our trip, bring your watercolors and your sketchbook.
Yeah.
Yep, that'll be the afternoon's activity after Parkrun and Park Faff.
But there is a piece of warning. We do need to be careful. There is a story relating to a dolly. We will have a mention of a Beverly later as well. So we have a bit of a kind of game of Dolly and Bev. We've got Dolly and Bev. Because, these linen workers in the 19th century, they weren't always very happy with regards to working conditions changing. So at some point, I'm afraid, the linen workers in Castlewellan actually rioted in a riot called Dolly's Bray, which left 18 people dead. So this is quite a violent Dolly, actually.
Was Dolly the one that started it?
couldn't make head or tail out of what's going on. The riot is called the Dolly's Bray, and it left 18 textile workers dead. But beware of the dollies, you know, hell hath no fury, like a scorned dolly.
Yes, yeah, never mind the claws, she might start a riot.
Yeah. Shall we talk about Beverly?
Yeah.
Dolly or
okay,
so
what's Beverly doing?
For that, we need the fourth image, or Exhibit D, whichever kind of thing.
All right, here we go.
So this is Bev's doing. Oh. So the designer of this thing, which is again in the Castlewellan grounds, which is obviously now looked after by the Forestry Commission, passed into kind of public ownership in 1969, is so huge they're actually struggling with funds to sort of maintain it. So again, I would say park runners assemble. We need to go to Castlewellan and actually bring them sort of like some funds.
Definitely.
But there's the designers. They're called Bev, Leah. So this is not Dolly. This is Bev. Bev is building stuff.
Okay.
Her brief was to design a peace maze. So the Northern Irish Peace Agreement, the Good Friday Agreement, was signed in 1998. And for the year 2000, there was a commission to create a peace maze to kind of like celebrate, you know, kind of like two halves of a country coming together. So you can see this is a kind of like sort of symmetrical design. And right in the middle, the white lump is a very, very sort of like big bell called the peace bell. So once you've gone through the kind of like maze, you can actually kind of like ring the peace bell. And Beverly Leah, I think this is really kind of like cool. She designed this by actually asking for input from 4,000 primary school children all over Northern Ireland. And kind of like thought about all these ideas, developed a kind of maze, which obviously draws on all the kind of like Celtic influences and all the kind of like history of the land as well. It's even cooler actually, because it's a living maze, and at the base of it are 6,000 yew trees. And at the time when this maze was being planted, there were 5,000 volunteers involved. So kind of members of the community came involved. So it's a kind of community peace bringing together, celebrating community project.
That is a very parkrunny kind of thing,
isn't it? Just and they almost created the longest living maze in the world. They held that for a couple of years, and then the pineapple garden maze in Wahawa, Hawaii, planted an extra kind of like 200 meters of trees or something, and actually knocked them sort of like off the perch. So this is the second longest tree maze in the world. And what a beautiful thing it is. They don't let you in there within an hour of closing time, because it takes on average at least 45 minutes to get through.
To be fair, that's probably about the amount of time it would take me to run a parkrun at the moment. So yeah.
It's a pretty spectacular kind of like maze.
Cool
and again, that's very, very close to the parkrun course. So all of this stuff's just been packed into this kind of artificially created landscape, which the Ansley family, after nicking it from the McGuinness family, actually kind of like developed in the course of the last couple of 100 years. So when can we go?
Now. Yes, let's, as soon as we can. What an amazing place.
Amazing.
I have to say that that comment has come up in the comments quite a few times. How amazing. Yeah.
We got a maze, we got a Dolly or Beth. What else do we need?
Absolutely. That's so many parkrunny with me nowy connections. Amazing. Quite literally amazing.
And we got the Mourne Mountains, so all the kind of park faff moaning sorted.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. Wow. All we need is a cake factory and we're there.
Oh, I didn't look for a cake factory. I don't even know whether there's a special cake. I'm sure somebody could let us know what kind of the Northern Irish park faff dainty of choice actually would be.
Ugh. There must be.
Mugs, we can just go. I mean,
yeah. Wow, that is, as always, that is totally going on my list of places I want to visit as soon as we can. That's such a cool place. Wow. Well, I'm super impressed. Shall we see if I was listening, as well as busily being super impressed and enthusiastic. I will do my best. As ever, the viewers might have to help me out a little bit. But
okay, question 1: what's the mother city of Castlewellan?
Oh, Newcastle.
Yay!
Newcastle, Ireland, not Newcastle, England.
Yeah, the one with the new castle.
The one with the actual Newcastle. I presume Newcastle, England, once upon a time had a new castle of some kind.
Yeah, so I always want to know what the old castle looks like, but you know, they had a new castle, so that's kind of like Newcastle. Second question is, which number Earl was the one? He was kind of photographing, going Japan, breeding mutant trees, marrying 46-year-old women.
Oh, he was number 5.
Excellent. That was the huge kind of like Ansley. And the third one is your choice. It's a Dolly or Beth. You need to recall either the Dolly or Beth.
I'll have a Dolly, please.
So what's the Dolly's bra?
Oh, it was the riot. There was a riot among the linen factory workers.
Yeah, totally not arbitrary. Absolutely correct.
Yay! Oh, that was a good one. Oh, amazing. Yeah, some good correct answers coming up in the comments as well. So let's just have a flick through those. Lots of people saying hello, 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 hello. Yes, lots of comments about where it was originally. Elizabeth Shazam says there seem to be quite a few castles at Welsh parkruns. Maybe that's a thing. So much love for the scenery. Just looks absolutely just gorgeous. Everybody saying gorgeous, 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 stunning, gorgeous, stunning. Lots of gorgeous and stunning. Yeah.
I love that comment.
Oh, a lovely comment from Karen saying that she loves the little felt heart that you've got hanging up there. Yeah, Catherine did a good job with the little felt hearts that are just absolutely beautiful. Karen also says, never any doubt that Gabby Funk can find a connection. I'm absolutely sure. Some interesting comments about moderate-sized girths, which I'm not sure that we should display.
For private enjoyment.
I think so, yes. Comments about health and safety for bleaching cloth. I think it was just sun bleaching, wasn't it? They didn't actually use like chemicals on them. Karen also has the brilliant idea that if we go there for an art trip, then Bev Ross could do a lesson in the afternoon. Perfect.
I mean, it wasn't Bev who designed the maze, so I think she has to.
I think she should, yes. Yeah, lots of love for the maze as well, giving Curly Whirly a run for its money. Wouldn't it be super cool to actually run through it? Although you'd have to mark the route out, wouldn't you? Or have to have like 20 gazillion marshals in there, but otherwise people would just disappear off into goodness knows where. Yeah, lots of amazing.
You would have to have maze adjusted running times or something.
Yeah, I don't know. However you'd work that, I don't know, but it would be a lot of fun. Karen giving it a lot of credit for the amount of research that went in this week, and lots of love. Yes, definitely on my list. Karen wants to know where the nearest airport is. Belfast, I would assume. Yeah, because it's not a million miles from Belfast. But yeah, totally want to go there.
We could do a powwow retreat. I mean, there is a
powwow. Yeah, we can go and get our zen on. We can walk the maze and think peaceful thoughts. We can do art. There's parkrun, and yeah. Sold. Sounds like a fabulous weekend.
Sounds like a plan, I think.
Yeah. Okay, that's that sorted.
So where are we going next?
Let's see, where are we going next? Right. Whose choice is it this time? I think we hadn't asked the audience last time. So Gabby, do you want to choose this time? Do you want to home or away?
I think I'd quite like to have a go at another away one. I mean, we can't travel any other way than by parkrunpedia generator at the moment.
That's very true.
So
Okay, let me just get that set up. So here we go with the international parkrun generator. So we have listed everything there from Aachener via parkrun in Germany, right down to Zuiderpark in the Netherlands.
That one in Aachen would have a lake as well. Avea has water.
We have had quite a lot of lake themes lately, haven't we? So, but let's press the red button and see where we'll be off to next week. Here we go. Oh, we're going to the USA. Terry Hershey Parkrun. Hershey as in Hershey bar?
Oh, I want chocolate. Yeah.
No. Oh, chocolate. Maybe we need props next week.
Yeah, but
we sell Hershey bars in my local corner shop. Ooh. There we go, Terry.
We would eat the props. If it's chocolate, we would eat the props.
Yes, well, obviously, we need to demonstrate something. Oh, but there we go.
We need to wait. We need to work on our moderate girth so we can still get.
I think my girth is plenty moderate enough. I don't think chocolate would probably help, to be perfectly honest. Oh, but there we go. And a new country for us, because we have we done a USA one?
No.
I don't think so. No.
We better sort the visas out and pack the barcodes.
Of course. Yeah. Terry Hershey sounds like a person, so maybe it's a park named after a person. We will find out. Okay. Well, on that note, thank you very much to everybody for watching, for all your comments. Thanks as ever to lovely Gabby for all the hard work she puts into the research that she then shares her enthusiasm with us every week. So do join us next week, same time, 7 o'clock Wednesday evening for a trip to Terry Hershey Parkrun in the USA. We will see you then.